This podcast is produced by OnPod, a video content studio near you.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Today we're here with Andrew Amaro. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
It's a great place.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
So you've worked in national security with CSIS and red teaming.
Yep.
We'll explain this a little bit before we get into the answer. How has that shaped your perspective on business risk compared to traditional corporate approaches?
So I spent over a decade with CSIS and I have military background as well. And some of my security kind of approaches also come from my skateboarding as well, which I know it might come as a surprise, but I do still skateboard. The reason for that is that you break into a lot of places when you're younger trying to skateboard or try to run away from authorities. Anyways, I thought it would be great for me to join the military and CSIS because it was the most authority I could find, I guess. Red teaming is really an approach where we try to emulate adversaries. So adversaries are anybody that's trying to attack your business. And that's in the end what you're trying to defend against is the bad guys that are trying to steal your data. They're trying to steal your IP. They're trying to influence your employees and all of that. So red teaming is really trying to pretend to be the attacker as much as you can. But in the end, you get a report versus getting something stolen. And so that really helps the businesses, try to test out their defense systems against the closest you can to the bad guys. And back to the red teaming approach, it's more of an offensive approach versus defensive. And the idea there is that you can try to emulate all of the different ways that you can try to break in somewhere or into a business, and then come up with a better better defense strategy because of what you know. And so when it comes to business and protecting a business, I like to go with the approach of red teaming, because if we know all the variables as much as possible, then we can come up with, based on business goals and priorities and resources, we can come up with the best security system and the security approach and posture for that business.
Amazing. Nice. And is there any businesses just off the top of your head that you have found to be a little bit more vulnerable right now?
Well, I'd say every business is vulnerable to some point, right? And you can't have perfect security, unfortunately. But what you can do is you can defend yourself to today's standards. And every single day it's changing, right? So I would say that anyone that's connected to the internet definitely has some sort of threats and risks. They're constantly being scanned. Any business that has a physical location, same thing. And then, it depends on what you do, what data you carry, what products what business you're in, what industry, and then the risks are different.
And you cover up every range of these risks?
I try to, yeah. So what we do is mostly focus on startups. So we're heavily on the data side and the cyber side. Because most startups nowadays are remote. We try to include as much as we can defenses for remote work, for example, and trying to, paint the picture and explain that everyone used to be in the same building and you had the network IT guy protecting everybody, but now your perimeter has disappeared. So we try to incorporate things like securing your home network, using devices that are only for work versus using your personal devices for work and mixing those two things. So as much as we can to make sure that the company can operate like they want to. And that's the biggest difference with us, is that we want to make sure that we enable businesses versus stopping them. We want to be invited to the parties, right? Usually security is never invited to the parties because they're like, no, don't bring that guy. He'll tell us not to do something. So
invite Andrew, everybody. Come on.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nice. Well, that's good. With everything changing so fast, like AI, machine learning, that can be a lot. We'll get into that later. But what's something you learned in the intelligence or military space that entrepreneurs can apply to building more resilient businesses?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I think it's more of a shift in the way that businesses think. So I think a lot of businesses will, when it comes to, let's say, ransomware attacks or anything like that, they'll usually think that they have to be special or to be in a special field or industry. Hate to break it to everybody, but you don't have to be special at all. If you're a business of any kind that has any sort of money transactions, which most businesses do, any data, anything like that, you're probably on the list. They're not discriminating against any business. So if you're a business, you're a target. period. And then the other thing is, don't focus on the crown assets only. Focus also on everything else that's around it. So that's people, systems, third-party apps that you use. Look at those as potential entry points as well.
So can they use those people to get into the crown assets? Like once they start,
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So exactly. So you, instead of going straight to, let's say, the CEO that has the key to the vault, you'll go to the CEO's assistant, for example, that might have a little bit more access, but, isn't expecting to be the target. Mm-hmm. So what we want to change is the idea that everyone that's part of the company is potentially a target. And so having that mind shift really helps the business owners and the teams create this security culture and allows everybody to now think of security as a team sport. I don't want to sound too lame with these sayings, but it is a team sport.
No, for sure. I totally get it. Like, I guess before you go up with a gun to the CEO, that would be the most direct and easiest and fastest way to do it. But now you have all these
there's a lot cleaner and easier ways to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Through the internet, you can kind of step by step kind of worm your way there. So
exactly.
Wow. Okay. Amazing. And you mentor emerging leaders in cybersecurity. Mm-hmm. What gaps do you see in how the next generation is being trained or prepared for real world security challenges?
Yeah, I was thinking about this, and I think the biggest gap is, and this has been around for a long time. I think the biggest gap is technology being spoken in terms of business. So how does this technology enable my business? So right now we're training a bunch of security analysts, a bunch of people to run a bunch of tools that are going to look for vulnerabilities. They're going to pen test. They're going to look at risks. They're going to look at compliance. But I think the gap really is like, how do you bring value to the business? How are we teaching these new folks to translate the technologies and vulnerabilities there and all of these tools? How do we get them to translate the value of that to the business? Mm-hmm. And how do we essentially train them to speak to, let's say, the business owners, the CEOs, and so on that think of security as, a roadblock or a cost center? And how do we get them to influence those decision makers in order to see that security can actually help you make more deals, bring more people on? It'll actually be a differentiator with your competition as well. So I think the biggest gap is we need to maybe foster a bit of the softer skills with the technical people, and say that it's great to have all of this know-how and all of these skills on the technology side, but you need to be able to translate it to the business world. So I think that's the biggest gap.
Yeah, for sure. Like in my mind, I was thinking the most important thing is that you don't lose money, but I didn't even think about the fact that your clients would be more willing to trust you with their business and all their data and all their intellectual property if they have that.
Exactly.
It's not all about losing money, even though I'm sure it does help.
It does. Absolutely.
Loss from that. Okay.
But for many, I would say decades now, where a lot of the people in the industry for cybersecurity have gone with the fear mongering, where it's like, if you don't do this, you're going to lose this. Mm-hmm. That has not really succeeded in a scalable way, because what we need to do is more let's look at security as an enabler versus something that you do only when you're in trouble.
Yeah.
So
that's a better mindset. I think just in general for psychology and what is it? You catch more flies with honey than with vinegar, to get into the cheesy sayings.
Yes, I like that.
Nice. Okay. Okay. So turning back to like normal people, civilians, SOC2 is a term that many founders have heard but don't fully understand. I know I don't. Mm-hmm. In plain language, what is it and why does it matter for startups and scale-ups?
Yeah. So SOC2 is simply a report card. So you have a third party that comes in and checks what you're doing with people's data, and make sure that you are doing what you say you do. So anyone can, say, "Oh, I'm protecting your data. Don't worry, I got it. Trust me." Right? Mm-hmm. The famous words. Yeah. Just trust me. It's going to be okay. Well, the idea there is like, how do I know that you're actually telling the truth, aside from just taking your word for it? So you have this third party that comes in and says, "Okay, yeah, you say you have all this. They do have all that. They've proven it to us, and so we're going to give you an attestation saying that." That you actually have all that. And you're telling the truth. So this becomes an attestation. So SOC 2 or SOC 2 is part of compliance. And it really it's all supported by 5 pillars. So trust principles. So we have security, availability, confidentiality, processing integrity, and privacy. And that touches on how you protect the data, how you operate your entire business. And it really helps even business owners to build their startups from the ground up in a secure way, and even how to manage data, right? As you go along. So if you go from 2 to 20 to 200 people, using something like a compliance, almost like a best friend that gives you really good advice, that's what SOC 2 does. Then there's 2 types. There's type 1, which is a snapshot in time, which could be done almost by a couple of screenshots and showing that you have the roadmap as to where you want to go. And then type 2 is almost like a movie, a continuous movie for an entire year. If I'm watching that movie, I can tell that your controls and your defenses are working throughout the entire year. Most enterprise clients will want type 2, but startups, we always try to set them up with the most achievable thing for a startup because of resources. So we always say that, type 1 is probably the easiest thing to get. You set you up with the foundation, and then you can build it up to a type 2. And then also shows that you're on the right track and you have the right plan and you've thought about it. You thought about the data, and, anyways, that's what SOC 2 is. And I really think it's cool to use something like that because it's recognizable globally. And at the same time, you actually can build a solid security foundation from it as well. So it's
nice. With type 2, can
win-win.
you see in real time when people are trying to hack into something?
That's a part of it about monitoring. So your type 2 will ask you to show how you monitor your network. So if something is about to happen or something is happening, how do you know? And then how fast can you fix it? How fast can you address it? So something like that would be like incident response. So you're responding to an incident, and being able to respond to an incident quickly and having a really good plan. It's like we're in this building. We probably have fire drills in this building, and we have, a path to go, where to meet, and so on. Mm-hmm. Incident response is kind of like that. Everyone should know what to do if the fire alarm goes off. Mm-hmm. And so the faster you can do that, the less impact, the less people get injured, and so on. So, and that was kind of like to go back as to what should businesses nowadays think about is, don't think of if you're going to get hacked. Think of it as when you get hacked, what are you going to do? And it's better to be prepared because you know what's going to happen. So SOC 2 does help you with that as well.
For sure. Yeah. It's like being proactive with the SOC 2 and then knowing how to react when something does happen. Yeah. Nice.
Except the one big difference is that we all know that we should do things like, eat healthier and work out and stuff. But if there was a reward for that, then, think of a SOC 2 as being a reward for it. So SOC 2 will tell you to eat healthier and work out. But then because you have SOC 2 and you're doing that, you also get recognized and get more business from it. Okay. So, we've been telling a lot of businesses for many years that, you should do this and it's good for you and it'll protect you. But then they turn around saying, well, this is still a cost. But now with SOC 2, a compliance framework like this one, it's a cost, but it's also something you can show off to enterprise clients and be like, hey, I've got this. Let's do business. And they're like, yeah, let's do it. So.
Yeah. Nice. It's like a police check. You don't want to let anyone in your house that doesn't have a police check or something like that if you're talking about maintenance or whatever. So it's the same thing with business, I'm sure, like that.
Exactly. Yeah. So you're covering your bases and vetting and so on. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. So I've heard the term, I think I saw it on your website, compliance theater, used to describe an approach to securing a company's data. What does that mean? And what are some common mistakes companies make when they're chasing these certifications?
Yeah. So compliance theater is, when you take an actor like Leonardo DiCaprio, for example, which good actor, he's acting in a role, right? It's part of the movie and it's not happening in real life. Compliance theater is when businesses want to get a certification just to get the certification. It's something like having a policy saying, we need 15 character passwords, but then they leave it in plain text and they don't encrypt it, right? I have MFA, but I only have MFA multi-factor authentication on, let's say, one system that doesn't really matter. It's like a side system. But it's like checking off the box. It's kind of doing it for the sake of doing it and not actually building that security foundation. So the compliance theater is almost like, I want to get the certifications, but then I can't back it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
As someone that wants to use a business that has just like a not, a compliance theater certification, how do you differentiate because that's the whole point of getting the certificate, right? Is to say that you have these parameters in place so that if anything happens, your data won't be breached. Like, as someone that's trying to find a secure business to go with, how do you differentiate? Can you?
You can, yeah.
Okay.
And so a lot of enterprise businesses, and even I would hope more people that are using services would do this, but unfortunately, most people don't yet. I'm hoping we get there. But you can ask for, let's say, the SOC 2 attestation report. You can review that. But in addition to that, you can also give the company like questionnaires and ask further questions, clarifying certain things. You have, let's say, everything's encrypted on your system. Great. Explain to me the type of encryption you have. And do you have an encryption at rest or in transit? You can actually go further and ask more questions. And what you'll find is the ones that are pretending or just got the badge won't be able to answer those questions in a clear way that seems like they're telling you the truth. So it'll become obvious. So a lot of the enterprise companies or other companies that are going B2B, they now have learned that. So they ask for a type 1, then they ask for a type 2 report, then they ask for questionnaires. Some of them are now asking for walkthroughs with the technical team. They want proof that you actually have what you have. But a SOC 2, for example, compliance or attestation is a starting point. But now tell me more about the background. Tell me that you're not just acting about it, acting like you have it. Tell me that you actually have it ingrained in your organization and you're actually applying the policies that you say you are. So
nice. Yeah. I feel like for just a normal kind of person, I would have no idea what kind of questions to ask, but I'm sure all these businesses have tech teams and
they do.
resources.
They usually have, let's say, a compliance office, or they have a procurement office that knows about these things. But even for us using systems, right? Things that you want to know about is like, what are you going to do with my data, right? Are you going to take my email and my information and sell it to others? Like, who are you sharing it with, right? So you want to know those types of things. You also want to know that if you're taking that data, how are you keeping it? Are you keeping it somewhere safe? Now with AI and all these AI models, you're also wondering, are you using my conversation to train your model so that other people can use it? So they're technically using my data. And how long do you keep it for? Like, if I want to be forgotten on the web, is that possible? Can I ask you to remove it? So these are the types of things, as you and I share so much data online nowadays, that we should be wondering, more of, what do I do if my ID gets out there, right? Like, what do I have to do? Do I have to go to one of those credit bureaus and protect myself? Or what should I look out for like identity theft and things like that? Okay,
I'm gonna have to watch this back and write all this down so I know for sure.
I can give you a list too. And if you have any questions, you can always call me.
Okay, great, thanks.
Or message me.
Yeah, going back to invite Andrew to the party, everybody.
That's right.
Yeah, he's cool. Okay.
I love parties. Yeah, I bring chips. Yeah, so we good.
Great. I would ask what kind. Okay, we'll get on to the next question. Okay, now that we've had so many technological shifts, especially in data and machine learning, which are still so new, we can barely keep up with the regulations. What are the most relevant security concerns for early stage company right now that aren't being talked about enough?
So there's a couple, but I wanted to use like the new terminology for it, but it really comes back to the original issue. Is that you think of your organization as an island, right? And then the other businesses would be that are coming in, and those relationships are, let's say, either bridges to your island or boats that are coming into your island. Any sort of connection that you bring into your business, be it by using other tools and stuff, you are essentially weakening that potential security perimeter. Now, you want to be able to do things. You want to be able to interface and integrate with other tools and bring more people to the island, because it's boring if you're just one person on the island. I'm trying to see if this works out. Let me just speak. And so what you want to do is you want to do it in a safe manner. So when we talk about businesses are always trying to keep up with new technology and new tools, because that's how you have to do it. You have to keep up with new tools so that you can beat the competition, or at least stay on track. So we've been bringing on new tools to companies for centuries. So what we need to do is do it safely, right? And now you bring in like AI and all of these other tools that you can purchase for $5 a month, $10 a month, and so on. We're doing the same thing. We should be doing the same thing. Is you can bring them on, but do the minimum thing, which is vet the company, look at what their privacy policies are. How are they going to use the data that you're giving to them from your business? And things like we hear about supply chain attacks and problems with, let's say other countries having backdoors into devices that you purchase. So you look at the idea of things that you're using within your business and operations. What ties do they have out that might put you at risk? So when we're looking at those vendor or supply management, I think that's one of the biggest ones is vendor management. If I bring it down to that, away from the island, the remote work, we kind of talked about that a little bit. I think it's not going away. It's gonna be either the majority of remote work. I know a lot of people are going back to the office, but there's going to be a hybrid. So there's still always going to be someone remote work. A lot of startups, can't afford facilities or offices. So it's going to be remote work. So start thinking about, how do I protect that? Like, do I want to send them home with like another router, for example, to maybe have them just work with the same device on the work router and the work device, so it's split from the kids and the family? Do I want to put some policies on that to protect it? Because now I know that they're using it. If employees go to a coffee shop and they're using Wi-Fi that's not technically protected, then, those are all risks. So you want to make sure that you at least think about that and consider it. And then AI model security is another thing. So if you're bringing AI models internally, and if you're creating that, think of things like model poisoning, social engineering of the model itself, how the model has access to so much data, and it might accidentally, spill out, let's say, your colleague's salary or something like that, something that's, sensitive. So those are the types of things to start thinking about. But I go back to the old rule. If you're bringing in new technology to the company, you're opening up your risk a bit. And so do it in a safe fashion. Look at the privacy, look at how it integrates with everything else, and then put, safety nets in place.
You never know when you're going to open the door and a mole's going to come in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, you got it. Yeah.
I'm getting it. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. So for founders who aren't security experts, how can they build a culture of security in their teams without overwhelming everybody else?
Yeah. This is a tough one, because security right off the bat, anyone hears security, right? I think even before, when you came in, you don't have to, tell me the truth, but as you came in, you're like, oh, this security guy, oh God, this is going to be boring.
I don't think. Okay.
So when you go to a meeting and people are like, oh, security is going to cost money, it's going to be super boring. And it doesn't have to be that way. So what I think, if you want to bring a security culture, is start explaining as to why you're doing it, right? What you're trying to protect. Try to personalize it. Try to give examples as to other companies that are actually in your industry and that, something happened to them. They got breached, and say, like, it happened to them, it could happen to us. Mm-hmm. The other thing too is, say things like, we don't want to stop you from doing something. We want you to do it safely. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the biggest change, because, a lot of the previous IT security folks would, and they're great folks, but I'm saying their approaches would be, well, just disconnect it, or just put a big firewall up, block access, that type of thing. Mm-hmm. I think we're way past that. So what we need to do now is, like, you're going to use that, but how do you do it safely, right? Mm-hmm. And that's the biggest change.
When it's more secure, you have more freedom.
Yes.
So that's going to be...
We have more protection too, right? You are, if you're within the company and you're part of the company, you want to protect the organization, which means, you protect your job, you protect your payday, right? So it just makes sense, because if it's not there and it gets breached, there goes your payday, right?
Yeah, for sure. So it's important for everybody.
Yeah, it's important for everyone. And I think that's the biggest thing to do is, I think empower businesses, accelerate businesses because they're more secure. Put things in place, like rough it in, for example, so that they're ready for scaling, and pick the right tools that support that too.
Nice. And I'm sure talking about it consistently in that kind of more positive way will get people on board and create more of a culture around security and ensuring everybody's.
Yeah. And, and this can help too, the employees as well as their families too. So they learn at work, then they take it home. They could teach, their grandparents and their parents about how to be safer online, for example, and their kids as well. Right. So it benefits everyone to be aware. We talk about operational security and situational awareness in the military and intelligence. And the idea is like being operationally aware is like, if you're walking down the street, you're aware of, is there someone coming towards me that might be a threat? You're looking around, what time it is, the neighborhood, those types of things. So you can then transfer that knowledge to someone else and protect them also. Right.
Nice. Yeah. Which is good for them to know, because everything's changing so fast, right?
Always. Yeah. It's super. Yeah. And that's the biggest thing. So in terms of vetting companies, it has to be done a lot faster now. So bringing in, let's say, AI tools that you've vetted beforehand to accelerate the vetting of other technologies and other tools, that is key as well. So security can't take 2-3 months to vet a company anymore.
Okay.
Right. They need to adapt to the fact that people can just take their own credit card, or they can sign up for a free service and they'll do it. But the problem is now you have zero visibility, and that creates a lot of risk in the business world. So what you want, okay, we have a vetting system, a vendor management process that is actually keeping up. And you want you to come to us to say, hey, I want to try this out. And within 20 minutes, you have the go ahead.
Nice.
Which then stops you from using your own personal account to using the company email address, and everything is now visible and controlled, versus, the shadow IT or shadow networking or shadow SaaS services that you hear about.
Yeah. You never know when you're going to get caught with something. It's almost like driving your friend's car when you don't have an insurance, and then they get pulled over by the cops or something. And then you're left like, okay, what do I do now? Like, you'd rather just keep everything safer. And
so it's accepting that things are going to happen, and how do we do it better? Right. Instead of saying, well, it's never going to happen because I told them not to. It's like, good luck.
Yeah. We all know that it never works that way.
Exactly.
Okay. So what resources, I know that you have a lot of resources on your personal website. You have a newsletter called Shadow Tactics, or communities. What should people turn to if they want to get smarter about security and compliance?
So as an individual, for example, so we have our Center for Cybersecurity here in Canada, and that's a national resource that anyone can type up on Google or ChatGPT to find it. CISA, which is CISA, is a resource from the US. FBI also has some really good individual advice. For organizations, depending on your size, there's paid resources groups that are threat intelligence groups that will share with each other. Usually those are, cost quite a bit to join, but they are there. In terms of smaller startups and all that, first they can subscribe to our Substack, which would be awesome. And there we talk a lot about, the upcoming, some of the threats that are new, some of the things that could impact you. And a lot of the incubators, so Invest Ottawa, we have an incubator and accelerator here. Toronto Metropolitan University has one as well. So if anyone that's watching right now wants me or my team to come out and do a workshop on security, you can always ask those facilities to reach out. So we typically do, some free workshops where we go over some of the basics for security for startups. And so there's a lot of resources out there. And in terms of it, just be curious and wonder what people do with your data. I think I should have started with that. I should have, just be curious as to you're inputting all this data about yourself where does it go and what do they do with it? I think
you don't want to get blackmailed or anything, right? Like, come on.
Yeah. Or targeted, I guess, for other scams and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough. Okay. For leaders or listeners
Yeah.
Who feel behind on compliance, what's the best first step they can take immediately after this episode?
The best first steps. Let me, I have my notes here because I wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything.
Nice. So there's a lot of them. There's a lot of important info to know then.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the first thing is knowing what you have, right? So asset inventory is, it could be as simple as, I'm trying to use more startups because that's what we deal with. 1 or 2 people, right? And typically they say, well, we only have 2 people. So what can we do? We can't really comply with anything. Like, what are we going to do different? So a simple thing is know what services you've signed up for and that you use for the business. It could be your email. It could be, Claude. It could be ChatGPT. It could be all of those services that you use to operate your business, even Stripe for your transactions. Write them all down and know exactly what you use. If you use computers and phones and servers and all that stuff, do the same thing. So know what you have, because if you know what you have, you can protect it. The other stuff is MFA. I mean, we've talked about multi-factor authentication so many times. 2-factor authentication, pass keys, do that. Like for every single service you have, enable them, because it's another layer of protection. Password managers, as simple as that. Make sure that you're not reusing passwords across different services. Right? I could tell you're kind of like, am I doing these things? And
I totally am. And I hate MFA, but anyway, it's necessary.
It's a pain. It is a pain, but it's one of those where it's way better than the alternative, I guess.
Yeah. Plus you get those emails that are like, oh, did you just try to sign in to your computer? And you're like, no. And then it saved your butt. So yeah.
Right. No, it's true. And I say these things and they're, cumbersome sometimes to use it, but I guess that's just the world we live in now. And it'll hopefully get better with new technology, new approaches for security. And we'll get there. Things like you're talking about monitoring, making sure that, if somebody's trying to attack you or trying to do something on your network, enabling some, antivirus and monitoring on your devices, on your cloud services, those types of things can be done. And then start thinking of when you're going to get attacked. What do you do? Mm-hmm. Who do you contact? Right. So hopefully you'll contact us if you want. And you could talk to us at the party. We'll be there. But you can have like an incident response contact list. So it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be a huge plan. Just the idea, if you start noticing things are going south and you need to call someone, who do you call? And have those contacts. Practice, let's say not backing up stuff, but recovering things from backup, and every single service that you have that has, let's say, a recovery key or something like that, it shows up on almost all the services that you have. It tells you to practice doing it just in case. So don't just not do it and just wait until something bad happens. Do it at least once a month and make sure that you can recover everything should something bad happen. The other thing too, the benefit of that is that if your service goes down and your clients start complaining, you'll be way more ready than before. Mm-hmm. So instead of like, say, 2-3 hours, maybe 2 weeks of outage, you'll have 20 minutes, 5 minutes of outage, and you'll be able to address it. So the impact is a lot less. Mm-hmm. The other thing is, if you don't know what to do, then, reach out to someone that can help you as well. Klavan would be glad to help you as well. I have here like written some budget, and I didn't want to throw this out here, but 3 to 8% is like the budget that you start thinking about, like how I'm going to build my foundation for security. Mm-hmm. So, and it doesn't have to be done, immediately. You can do 1 or 2 things every quarter and build that foundation. And you don't have to do it, let's say, when you have this massive enterprise business deal kind of pending on your security. And you also don't have to essentially deal with the breach and build everything because you were breached, because you're cleaning up a giant mess now.
Yeah, be proactive instead of reactive. Build that fire drill plan so you know exactly what to do if anything happens. Yeah, it makes total sense now. Now I'm liking multi-factor authentication a little bit more. So thank you for that. We just have one more question for the podcast. Is there any one person that kind of changed your life direction or trajectory? Any one person that pushed
One person?
you? Yeah.
To answer that, no, it's not one person. It's been multiple people. Yeah.
Okay.
And in different ways too, right? So definitely my wife would probably be one of them, 100%. Then I've had a couple of mentors that have definitely, changed how I looked at things and where I went in my career. And actually there was one high school teacher as well. That was pretty cool. And
How did they influence you, the high school teacher?
So again, going back to the skateboarding, I preferred skateboarding versus studying at the time. I preferred skateboarding in school after it was closed and breaking into it and so on. This teacher somehow saw the potential that I had, and she spoke to me in a way that I understood, kind of what I'm suggesting here. So she kind of made me appreciate some things that I was learning and things that I can use later, putting it into more of a practical manner, where a lot of the times we're taught things in school that you kind of think it's a waste of time. You don't see where they're going to be used. Like, why am I going to need this? So she kind of bridged that gap, and it made a huge difference as well. And the fact that she took the time to understand it the way I understood it was pretty big. So.
Yeah. You never know when someone's going to change your perspective on things, for sure.
Yeah.
And thanks for changing your perspective on security with me here today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.